Now we'll bring you highlights from the State of the Nation address. We start with security. President Akufo-Addo mentioned what the government is doing as far as security is concerned. He talked about opportunities that are being made available for police officers to upgrade themselves. But he also talked about investments that are being made in cybersecurity. He talked about the condition of service for all security agencies, which he says is improving. But he also talks about the police public perception, which he says leaves much to be desired. He wants the police to work on that perception to improve it as well. Here is President Akufo-Addo on security.
The peace that currently prevails in Dagbon is required for progress and development throughout the country. We've spent a lot of money to ensure that the security agencies that are charged with maintaining law and order and keeping us safe are well-resourced to enable them perform their duties. Police numbers have been increased and will be increased further until we meet the recommended ratio. The police have been provided with more vehicles and equipment than they've ever had, including over 600 vehicles and 3 incoming helicopters. There are now more opportunities for police officers to undergo training on the job to make them better prepared for work in our communities and keep us safe. We're building upon and improving the capacity of the cybercrime unit to confront and neutralize the criminal and dark underbelly of modern technology and the cyber world. The government will continue to work with the management of the police service to ensure that there's proper and adequate training in modern policing methods and the equipping of the service to enable them deal with crime. Mr. Speaker, government is committed to improving the conditions of service of all security personnel, including the police. But nevertheless, I think it is my duty also to point out that public perception of the police continues not to be the best, and they must make a comprehensive effort to earn the confidence of the public. We cannot run a country of law and order without a well-trained and accomplished police service that has the respect and confidence of the people. I acknowledge the work they do, but I urge them to work harder on their reputation. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that the equipment and rehabilitation effort is not only in the police service, but also in all the other services as well. I must make mention of the fire service and the prison service, where the numbers have been increased with fresh recruitment. There are positive things happening in the prison service, with opportunities being made available for inmates to acquire skills. I note in particular with a lot of satisfaction that this past year, 376 prison inmates passed various exams in the National Vocational and Technical Institutes, junior high schools, and senior high schools. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Armed Forces continue to perform creditably in discharging their duty of defending the territorial integrity of the country. The government has retooled and equipped them to keep them in the desired state of readiness. When the government amended LI 1332, which extended the run-out date from 25 years to 30 years for the other ranks, it led to the creation of new ranks within the structures of the armed forces and to a subsequent rationalization of wages and salaries for all ranks within the armed forces. Government is tackling the long-standing housing problem that has faced our armed forces. Over 500 million cedis is being invested in housing projects of varying sizes for the men and women of the armed forces and in refurbishing the military academy and training schools in Teshi. Our soldiers have been active along the northern borders to protect our country and its people since the eruption of terrorist activities in Burkina Faso.
Closely linked to security is the issue of Galamsey. The president spent a chunk of time there talking about it. He indicates he actually called on the media coalition not to relent in its efforts, but he also indicates that suggesting that illegal the mining cannot be carried out is unrealistic. He talks about government not weakening its stance, and then indicated the number of confiscated equipment, including 12,000 Shamfa machines, which he says have been confiscated. He then talks about the very thorny issue of excavators. He says he doesn't provide any number which has also been in contention, but he says that investigations are ongoing.
The mention of Operation Vanguard would seem to be at the appropriate time to deal with the subject of galamsey, the popular name that has been coined for illegal mining. When we came into office in January 2017, galamsey activities were rampant in many parts of our country. Our lands, forests, and river bodies were being systematically degraded and polluted without any care. And this had been the case for several years. And indeed, the previous NDC government had given up the fight against galamsey. We determined that this was an intolerable situation, and we owed it to generations yet unborn to tackle the problem and save our environment. I was very much aware that the lure of gold, once it takes hold, drives away all rationality. That is not a Ghanaian characteristic. It is a human characteristic that has been displayed all over the world throughout the ages. I was therefore not under any illusions about the size and scope of the problem we're taking on. But I was cheered by the support from a large part of the population that has also recognized the danger posed by the degradation of our lands and water bodies and the needless deaths of young people who are being buried alive in makeshift mining pits. I welcomed in particular the media coalition which was formed in July 2017 that lent its support to the fight against galamsey. As I have said on countless occasions, the battle we launched was not against mining. It would be unrealistic for anyone to suggest there should be no mining in Ghana. The Almighty, having blessed us with all these precious minerals, must surely be in agreement that we'd find ways to use them to develop our country and for the benefit of our communities. However, taking the minerals out should not lead to the destruction of our water bodies and forests or endanger the sustainable existence of our country. What is more, it was obvious to all that the small-scale mining that had always taken place in our communities had been transformed into something unrecognizable in our history by the introduction of the monster machinery that dug up riverbeds and turned serene streams into ugly, toxic, muddy, frothy ponds. It was no longer small-scale mining, and it was certainly no longer local community mining when we saw the influx of foreigners into the most rural, isolated, and densest of forests. It was no longer local community mining when rivers, hitherto considered as sacred, were being abused and polluted. We started with the banning of all small-scale mining, and after about a year of the campaign, we made some progress as some rivers showed signs of coming back to life. The University of Mines and Technology at Takwa took on the role of training local people in sustainable mining. And by the time the ban on small-scale mining was lifted last year, almost 4,000 had received the training. The Honorable House also did its part by amending the Mining Act to raise the penalties for illegal mining and prohibiting foreign nationals from participating in any way in small-scale mining. The nation is grateful for the intervention of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the threat posed to the future of our country by galamsey is grave, and we cannot shirk our responsibilities in dealing with it. I'm appealing to the media coalition not to be daunted by the difficulties in the fight against galamsey. Government will not weaken its stance and welcomes the continuous support of the media coalition. The Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining has been working hard and has had some successes. Under the agencies of this Under the auspices of this committee, the Ministry of Local Government has formulated and is implementing the Alternative Livelihood Program in 35 severely affected Galamsey districts across the country. Last year, 500 youth, mainly engaged in illegal mining, were trained and graduated in vocational and technical skills from community development, vocational and technical institutions. They've been provided with startup tools and equipment. An additional 607 youth are currently undergoing similar training, 240 of whom are in the community development institutions, while 367 are attached to master craftsmen through apprenticeship at the community level. In forest reserves has declined. More than 4,000 miners have received training in sustainable mining. The number of individuals dying in collapsed mining tunnels and pits in the few unauthorized locations left has reduced by more than 90%.
President Akufo-Addo there. Well, let's wrap up on the highlights with what he said as far as corruption is concerned. President Akufo-Addo indicates the efforts that he's put into ending corruption. He talks about the Witness Protection Act. He talks about the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act. He talks about the Companies Act, all of which he says are efforts towards ending or reducing corruption. He also talked about budgetary allocations to oversight institutions, state institutions, which have all been done, and then talks about the introduction of more transparent, what he describes as the introduction of more transparency in the allocation of oil blocks. The President.
Government has increased budgetary allocations to all the accountability institutions of state, including the Parliament of Ghana, the Judiciary, SHRAJ, EYOCO, the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, the Auditor General, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and the Ghana Police Service, with annual increases between 25% and 34% between 2017 and 2019. We have also implemented a change from the opaque allocation of Ghana's oil blocks to a more transparent allocation process, and advisedly so. The opaque period, 2013 to 2016, saw, according to the Ministry of Energy, the signature of 13 petroleum agreements, from which 14 wells were to be drilled. Not a single well was drilled. In contrast, in my time, over the last 3 years, there have been 6 drilling campaigns on 3 different blocks, with others on the way. We will drill more and find more oil. Some 40 or more high-profile personalities are currently before the courts on various corruption charges, and most are in the pipeline. I would like to repeat that if evidence of corruption is presented, no one will be spared, regardless of position or political affiliation. No one is above the law. That is the true meaning of equality before the law.